Potter's House family, what an incredible day this is. We want to thank God for our leadership and Pastor Sheryl and Bishop Joby Brady that not only think about your spiritual well-being, but they also are concerned about what's going on in our city, in our nation. And so here today, we are at the Fentanyl Town Hall, the TPHND Fentanyl Town Hall. I want you to I want you to share, I want you to put questions in the comments. I want you to do everything you can to get the most information you can. We have partnered with some dynamic leaders in the Frisco community. And right now, I want to acknowledge Ann Harris. She's done a tremendous job. She's the co-founder of Step Up Frisco, and she has done so much philanthropic work in our community to move the dial forward regarding fighting anything that comes against this city of Frisco and the surrounding areas. Right now, I want you to check out this video.
If you love yourself, if you respect yourself, if you love life, you have a choice, because it is between life or death. This is no joke. You can and will die. How do I know this? I can tell you that I've met thousands upon thousands upon thousands of parents nationwide. I wish somebody had sat me down and had this talk with me about what fentanyl does to people.
I didn't get that chance. You do.
You know, there's always been one main problem with the films that we make, and it's the reason why we try to keep them as real and as relatable as possible. People just so commonly think that it will not happen to them. I'm talking about great people, nice people, cool people, intelligent people with big plans for the future, big potential. Gone because of one choice they didn't know would end their life. Fentanyl is coming for anyone and everyone. So the most important message that I can give to kids, to teens, young adults, anybody, is the same old message we've heard time and time again. And that's to really get serious about not even trying a drug. You see, back when we first started, I was telling kids not to use drugs because you might get hooked, you might get addicted. Now there's not even time for that. Now it's don't try a drug because you might actually not wake up tomorrow. You might actually not get another chance. One choice is all it takes. If you don't believe that, I guarantee you, at this point, there was someone very similar to you who wished they could be here right now to look into the camera and look into your eyes and say, don't do it. Please don't do it. Please, I wish I wouldn't have done it. Don't do it. Don't risk your life. So my question for you is, are you going to listen? Or will it be your family and your friends holding your picture, wishing they could have been there to tell you?
This is my son, Alexander. He died at 14 years old from fentanyl poisoning.
This is our daughter, Jessica. She was 29 years old when she was killed by fentanyl.
This is my daughter, Alex. She was murdered at 20 years old by a drug dealer who sold her a counterfeit pill made of fentanyl.
This is my son, Daniel Joseph Puerta Johnson, killed at the age of 16 by illicit fentanyl.
This is my son.
The end of the world at the palm of my hand. If you can't come with me, I'll understand. I'll understand.
Hello and welcome, friends, family, and community, to the Potter's House of North Dallas Town Hall, where we're having a conversation about fight against fentanyl and what we can do as a community to recognize, to fight, and to support what's happening to make a difference. My name is Kedron Boston.
And I'm Katura Boston. And together, we serve at the Potter's House North. We are the children's and student ministry directors. We are longtime educators ourselves, over 2 decades. And so this is an important conversation that we not only want educators and leaders in the community to be having, but our families and our children to be made aware, clarify your questions, give you some practical answers, and ensure that there's more information that you can trust being circulated out there. So if you're watching online, please don't forget to like or share, and please deeply and strongly consider sharing. Whether you have children or not, you know an adult or a young person that has the ability to gain access to this very detrimental, toxic, life-threatening drug, fentanyl. And so today with us, we have some very, very knowledgeable individuals that are going to share some very practical information and some knowledge that'll lead us in the way of wisdom as we do navigate these conversations. Our first guest today is Kathy. Kathy's with Winning the Fight. Winning the Fight is an organization that she founded in memory of her son and as an opportunity to reach out to the community and offer resources and educations about drugs. So we want to hear from her today, get some of her expertise. Please, if you're in the comment section, ask your questions. We'd love to hear about them. Kathy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for asking. So my story goes back. We have 2 sons, and our younger son, Brett, was extremely ADD. And we dealt with that but he struggled. He struggled in school. He just struggled all the time. And so we were always working with the ADD part of that. What we missed was the mental illness that came with that. We missed the anxiety that came with that. And we know now that we see three things typically. We see mental health is kind of a precursor. We see trauma, and we see genetics when we have substance use. And you understand that. So anyhow, we went through school, and about middle school, he started smoking pot and drinking alcohol, and we were trying to get a grip on all of that. And I remember the doctor one day said, I did not go in the room with him, and the doctor said, by the way, I talked to Brett, and he's starting to substance use. And I said, can you be more specific? And she said, no, because I did not go in that room with him, which is interesting because he was like 14 years old, and yet he had that privacy. So had she said, I suggest you drug test him, we would have known then. But the reality of it was that we just assumed it was smoking pot, and that was a bad assumption. And as we kind of went forward, he started using bigger and bigger drugs and not doing well in school, et cetera. And at one point, he got into heroin and at 3 overdoses, and he ended up dying March 10th of 2010 from a mixed drug intoxication. And so I started winning the fight. And it's so interesting because when Brett died, we were just talking about this, that our stats right now are from 2011 or 2021. So the stats right now from 2021, somebody's dying every 4.88 minutes. And the reality is 11 years prior to that, somebody was dying about every 17 minutes. And that's when Brett died. So we are seeing a huge increase, and that number is just plummeting. So we started winning the fight, and what we see now is so different from what we saw when Brett was substance using. And like I said, he overdosed 3 times, and the amount of fentanyl that we're seeing right now is amazing to me. And we have people that buy drugs off the street, and they really believe they're buying Percocets or they're buying Xanax or something like that. And it's so important for us to have people understand if it's not a prescription and you're not going to Walgreens or a pharmacy to fill it, it is a counterfeit drug. And the odds of that being, right now, the odds we're seeing is 60% of the drugs are being laced, which means that if you're picking up something, you have a 60% chance of dying from that drug. And that's high. That is really, really high. So if we kind of sit back and say, okay, if you're doing drugs because of mental health, why don't we work with the mental health? If you are doing drugs because of trauma, let's work with the trauma and keep the people off of the substances. But
absolutely. Kathy, you said some really important things that our young people, as they're soliciting these street drugs, they think they're getting something else. How important is it, and maybe you can just help us reinforce this idea that purchasing any drug is incredibly dangerous, not just for the reasons you mentioned, that they could be laced with anything, but can you just emphasize that for parents who are of the belief, well, I know I've caught my kids smoking, marijuana before, and maybe it's just that, but what would you say to that parent to take it a step further?
It's interesting because a lot of people don't think it's going to happen in their home. We were kind of that family too. And especially we live in Flower Mound, so we didn't think there were even drugs in Flower Mound. But the reality of it is, and I tell parents this a lot, do you think your child will drink before they're 21? And most parents will say yes. Do you think your child will do drugs? No, they would never touch drugs, but where's that line? And if you cross one line to drink, or if you cross one line to actually smoke pot, where's the line that stops it, okay? But we also have to kind of lock up our homes as well, because that's something we can do. A lot of people are getting afraid of purchasing street drugs because of fentanyl right now, but yet our homes have all these drugs in them and they're typically not locked up. So that's another thing that we really need to address, is locking up our prescription medications at home, because you don't know anybody's story. You don't know. Brett's friends used to come in the house, and I'd see him in the kitchen with the cabinet open, and I'd be like, what do you need? And, oh, we're just looking for a glass for water. But the reality is they just found the drugs. So locking up those drugs are really important, but we cannot trust anything unless you are getting a prescription filled at a pharmacy in the United States. And even DEA has admitted that pharmacies in Mexico, which a lot of people go in and get Z-Packs and stuff that you can just walk into, those are actually getting laced pharmaceuticals as well. So we can't trust any of that. We have to hunker down and just pay attention to what's happening in our country right now. And it's not good.
Thank you for that. If you're just joining us now, you just tuned in. This is Kathy O'Keefe of Winning the Fight. And I love that your approach to this organization is from a victory standpoint. Her intentions are to win this fight, and not just for herself and her family, but to help us win the fight for our children and their futures. So we appreciate you for just sharing on that level and being so transparent. There's a level of vulnerability that it takes to share your personal story and to use that as motivation and fuel to say, now I'm gonna give to parents and the community what I did not have myself. And here are some things that I caught, here are some things that I missed. This is a real conversation. And so that's why we're so glad that you're watching right now. Please share this, please ask questions in the comment section.
It's great.
Yeah. All right, at this time, we are going to watch a very compelling video that has been prepared by Mr. Mike Land. He's gonna share some of his story with us. Please turn your attention to this video. Great time to share, friends.
My name is Michael Anthony Land. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm here today because of my son, Preston Land, who died on January 5th of 2021 from acute fentanyl poisoning. Preston was a funny guy. Just a great kid. I mean, he could make anybody laugh. And that's what keeps me going sometimes, is just thinking about all the good times and the laughs that we have. You know, I still have his text messages to this day. Just a great relationship. You know, and then high school hit for a teenager and things kind of changed a little bit. He struggled a little bit with a few things, you know, some isolation, a little bit of depression, and tried to get him some help with that. He lived with me for a number of years, and then when I kind of started traveling a lot back and forth to Arizona, you know, that's when I got that call, you know, from my ex-wife saying, Preston's gone. And my first thing was, gone where? And she said, no, he's dead. Preston was not what society or what I looked at as an addict. And that's what upset me a lot, was people, their first thought were, well, I didn't know he was an addict. An addict is somebody that can't live without it. Preston was not that way. That night that he took that pill, I don't know what he was struggling with. If it was just a quick, you know, depression, you know, he wanted, whatever it was, he wanted that quick thing that, I just want to get out of this attitude right now. He got a bad pill. People think of drugs as the hardcore stuff that's illegal, the cocaine, the methamphetamine, the heroin on the streets and everything. If you go to a party, somebody says, hey, I've got this pill, don't worry about it. It's not anything hard drug or anything like that, but it's gonna kill you, or it's a really good chance of killing you if it's fentanyl. And so that's what's worrisome to me. First month or two after Preston passed away, of course, we didn't have an autopsy report. We didn't know. I think it was pending results of toxicology. When it came back as fentanyl, after I accepted that and worked through that, then I remember getting real mad. It's like, what am I gonna do about this? I was very lucky to have my church and the group that I'm with there that helped me through a lot of the anger and wanting to find blame with everybody. And I said, okay, I've got to do something to stop this. And I can't stop it legally. I can't stop it with politicians. But what can I do? I'm a parent. I can maybe talk to other parents and just make them aware of, here's what happened to my son. Here's what I feel that I did wrong. Is it my fault? No, but you still wish you would have done something different. But there's a lot of stuff that, with my troubles in the past and drinking and stuff, he might have mimicked me thinking it's okay. So it's a day-by-day thing, but I'm just taking that. I still get angry sometimes, I still get sad, but I'm trying to turn this into something good and use his name for something good. My initiative is to hit 25 national parks over the next year. Drive to those national parks, and I'm going to ride 7 miles off-road or whatever it is. If it's white sands, New Mexico, riding in the sand for 7 miles. 7 is the number of completion in the Bible. So I will feel I have completed this, and I will make some sort of purpose. Every trip that I go on to, I'm going to give you the times, the dates, and say, here's where I'm gonna be. If you wanna come join me, join me. If not, share this video and at least get the word out of what I'm doing. Trying to bring awareness to the fentanyl issue. Over the next year of doing this project for Preston, the success story for me, honestly, would be that a kid came home from a party and said, Dad, Mom, you know what? Some people are passing around this pill, and I thought about what you told me, and that guy Preston or whatever. So I was scared. I didn't take it. That's a success story. So that's the legacy that I want him to bring, is that he will never be forgotten for that. I want his name to live on as that he helped somebody. His passing helped another parent not have to go through what I went through.
Friends, it's stories like the one you just heard that has compelled the heart of our pastor, Sheryl Brady at the Potter's House North, to hold this time to have this conversation. Will you all please embrace and share this story as we continue the conversation with Mr. Mike Land. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for having me. In addition to the video, one of the success stories that I had mentioned was, what is the success? What would I look at the end? And it was one person. And I'm about halfway through the national parks, and I can tell you I've met people from all over the United States, and I get comments constantly of people saying, thank you for sharing. I talk to my kids. And we go on about what parents can do. And one of my failures was, of course, I was a divorced parent, is I traveled a lot for work, but I never really focused on my son, just that family time. And I think that's what's going on in the world right now, is you've got two parents, both career focused. They come home from work, throw the food on the table, and just don't spend that quality time. And that's what I wish, I would have done a better job at with that. I did become a believer in Christ in 2017. And I did the little things, leaving the Bible out and everything on the counter, trying to get Preston to turn that way. And I think with youth now, the way I look at it is a lot of kids, something else is grabbing them, whether it's mental illness or struggling with, whatever that is, and they're worshiping something else. And, I've learned through my addiction and my alcohol troubles in the past that, alcohol was my idol. And that's something I'm trying to get, talk to people about, is I'm trying to bring them to Christ, honestly. And, I think that's what's missing a lot of this. But just to get out there and talk to families is the main thing. And it brings me joy when people will make a comment or contact me and say that something good happened. that they talk to their children. The other thing is the parents that have lost. And with each ride, I climb to the tallest peak and do a memorial service for my son. And I present that online. And as a guy, we're not supposed to cry, but I've done it. So, but it's showing that it's okay, and that, God is using me as a purpose for this. And, when I got that call from my ex-wife and she said that Preston had passed away, I really thought, you've got to be kidding me, because my youngest son died in 2005. And I thought, well, you're not supposed to lose both your children. And over time, Job has become my mentor. And but I just don't want another parent to have to deal with this. And like I said, I'm not law enforcement. I'm not a politician. I can't stop it, but I can help parents talk to their kids. And believe me, we've all lied to our parents in the past, and the denial factor has to go away. Talk to your kids, and they're not going to come out and tell you the truth all the time. And the one thing I talk to parents about when they say, well, my kid wouldn't do that. Well, I asked the parent, did you ever go to high school? They said, yes. And I said, have you ever heard of peer pressure? Maybe something like that. So it's just getting the word out. So, but I appreciate you guys having me here. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. As a father, man, I'm grateful and thankful for your vulnerability. As I was watching the video myself, and then I peer over at you, and we don't know what it's taking for you and what it has took from you to stand before people, to press. Not only are you sharing your son's story and what's happening, but you're spreading hope, you're spreading insight. You're doing a greater job than you probably even can imagine. And I just thank you. We thank you for being here, because we know it's not easy. And so as a father, from dad to dad, thank you for what you're doing. And I'm so sorry for your losses, but I thank you for the wins that you have every day from helping other families and other youth. Just, it hit me hard when you said that the success is when a young man comes from a party and lets their parent know, look, I almost did that, but I heard this story about Preston and I didn't do it. And that's, as a parent, that is something that means a lot to us. It's a priceless thing, because insight and information, as they're soaking up online, we want to put positive things out there, wonderful things out there that will help raise awareness so our kids can stay safe. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. And it's very key when I said the one person, because I got in that mode that, you know what, I'm going to save the world, but I can't. So I just figured, if I can help one person, just disciple to one person, one family, to share it. And it's more than numbers are showing that it's helping. So
it's a big deal.
So thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And certainly right now, as we're in this moment, we are very grateful for the life that Brett and Preston did live and the fruit that has come from it. And so as we segue into inviting our next guest to speak and to share, this is Shannon White from Grace to Change. And we know that all change happens. We don't know what will cause change. We don't know when the people in our lives that are under substance abuse or any type of addiction will happen, but we know that they do need grace to do it. They need a safe place to do it, and they need education. They need resources. They need a practical approach to turning their lives around, and so do their families. A lot of times we don't really realize that it does take that village of people around you to support you through that change. And so we're very grateful for what her organization does to provide a community of not just the educated, but those who have compassion. And we talked earlier, we said this is almost missionary work. We're evangelizing in a sense, but this is missionary work, and your mission has been to serve this community, and you are serving here locally in Dallas. So thank you for being here, Shannon. Please talk to us about what you do with Grace for Change and what you feel we need to know. Just give us a brief intro, and then I know you have some things to share with us that's going to help all of us.
I do. My name is Shannon White, and I'm the Executive Director of Grace to Change in McKinney. I'm also an individual who's in long-term recovery from alcohol. By the grace of God and a lot of hard work, I haven't had a drink since August 25th of 2007. And thank you. One of the things I felt like was really important, I do as an educator. I was a kindergarten teacher and a second grade teacher for 14 years. So you'll see my slideshow resembles that educational level. I needed a place where people could come and get help, that they weren't going to be judged. And I awoke in the night. I was working in another treatment facility, and I awoke in the night, went and thought, what is grace? Grace is unmerited favor. And I apologize, I'm going to get emotional. Anyone that has a substance use issue and is still alive has received that grace. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk about grace and God and drugs in the same situation, because that doesn't get to happen for me very much. And so we started Grace to Change as a facility to help those who would never be able to afford treatment on their own. And so we work with the indigent population. Most of our people don't pay anything to come to our treatment. And we've had over 1,100 people graduate successfully from our treatment programs in McKinney over our 12 years. So on May 22nd, we'll be celebrating the beginning of our 13th year in business. So if they could, I'd love them to put their slideshow up so we can go over a few little facts. So you've heard it said, one pill can kill. And that simple statement carries so much power because it's really true. Flip to the next one. This tiny amount of fentanyl is a lethal dose. And fentanyl is 50 times more potent than heroin, 50 times. So for those of us that lived in Collin County, we had the Plano epidemic with heroin, and we lost 17, 20, 22 people with that. Wouldn't it be a luxury if we had that same problem in Collin County and we'd only lost 17 or 20 people at this point? So the next slide shows my kindergarten background, but what's happening when people are mixing these pills is it's as simple as two different substances. So pink being the fentanyl, green being whatever they think it may be, baking soda, cocaine, whatever they want it to be. And literally they're mixing it like kindergartners would on a plate. And then they're scooping out pills to press. So you never know, you may be getting an all pink pill, you may be getting all fentanyl, you may be getting some all green pill where you don't have an effect, and then you take another one that could be the one that kills you. So there's no rhyme or reason. I heard somebody say drug dealers are dumping things literally in a large vat, like a big barrel, and mixing it with an ore. That's about as civilized as the cartel is about how they want to put our drugs out in our system. So the next one, please. I'm going to cry when I say this. So this slideshow we created maybe a month and a half ago, and that number, 886% increase in deaths from fentanyl. Mike and I just were at a program not 2 hours ago where our sheriff said that number is no longer 886%, it's 1,320% increase. 1,320% increase since 2018. It is unfathomable. So here's some of the signs that you'll see: drowsiness, constricted pinpoint pupils, agitation, depressed respiration, confusion, and euphoria. So not all of these are specific to fentanyl, but these are the indicators that we watch for with fentanyl. Severe drowsiness, low blood pressure. You can see that the signs of the overdose, basically what happens is your body, your organs begin to shut down. So if you hear any of these terms that your kids are using, fet and fetty, ice cream, Chinese food, fading, slang for being high, those are all the things that you look for on there. And I'm guessing the police officer is going to do a better job of explaining some of this to you, but these are the things we look for. So they're trying to disguise how they're working and what they're using to buy and to sell online in things that they think parents aren't going to figure out. So this is Narcan. Narcan is available. There is a website called More Narcan Please, where you can order free Narcan for your house. We have it at Grace to Change in McKinney that we offer to give free. It is the nasal spray that reverses a fentanyl overdose. And so it looks just like an Afrin bottle. You simply spray it up your nose when they see the symptoms that you've seen of somebody possibly overdosing. There is zero risk to an individual to spray Narcan up their nose if they're not overdosing. If they are, it will save their life. If they're not, they may be a little angry because it's a little boost of adrenaline, but there is zero consequence for using Narcan. And we've been encouraging people to send their kids to college with it, to carry it in their car, because it may not be your child. We have an individual in our program right now who's a 17-year-old little girl, took one Percocet, and she overdosed. Her 15-year-old friend had learned CPR, and he gave her CPR until the police could get there to give her a shot of Narcan. And she has survived to say bad words and enjoy herself in our treatment program, and it is a blessing. And the last slide, in Collin County, there is a place called LifePath Systems, and there's an office in McKinney, there's an office in Plano, and they hold the funding for the county for substance abuse treatment and mental health. So anyone that is indigent, you can qualify for treatment for inpatient, for outpatient, and for detox. So it is free. So there's not a reason why people are saying, I can't afford treatment anymore. In Collin County, you're blessed. In Dallas County, they have the same program. It's North Texas Behavioral Health. Grace to Change is the treatment provider in Collin County. We are one of two for adolescents. One of two for adults, and we are the only adolescent provider in Collin County that utilizes these funds. And so our goal is to reach as many people as possible. We work on, a lot of our stuff is donations. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. And so you can check us out on our website and choose to make decisions. We're celebrating our 12 days of giving right now for our anniversary. So there's lots of ways that you can get involved and help. Most importantly, please take our phone number. We want to help anybody. If we are not a fit at Grace to Change for your people who are suffering, we want to be able to point you in the right direction. As I sat up here, I got a text on my watch from someone who needs help finding detox for a friend whose son is in the hospital with a fentanyl overdose. So we work 24/7 to do what we can to solve this crisis.
Wow. Thank you so much, Shannon. Y'all, if you're watching online, I can't imagine a better time for you to pause, screenshot some of this information, and just have it on hand. If you won't share this video, at least share the information and be aware for yourself. We love that you brought up that there is a solution circulating. It may not be widespread, but something that will prevent the likelihood of death in individuals who find themselves in an overdose situation with this new, I want to say technology, because it is. They've had to do some work to get to a solution for this, but Narcan. And what Shannon is not saying, I want to be very clear, she's not suggesting that everyone get it in their hands so that they can try this drug and say, hey, if I pass out, here's something that I can use. What she is saying is that it should be used something similar and likened to maybe an EpiPen or something. This is just in case. This is preventative. It's life-saving and could be life-changing. So as you use this information, share it, use it responsibly, and please have conversation about what's available out here. At this time, we have another guest, don't we, Keegan, that we want to talk to?
We surely do. To continue the conversation, to go a little deeper, we have with us Lieutenant Ryan Moore, who serves in the Frisco Police Department. In your perspective, we know that you're on the front lines. You see the backside, the underside, the inside of what's really happening reactively, but you also are working proactively to address what's happening in our community. So we welcome you, and can you share a little bit of insight with what you do and what you see?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. I really enjoy being here. Hearing you guys tell your stories and the change you're trying to make in the community, it's heartfelt. It's very warming on our end as well. We try to do what we can, and it's not just by enforcement actions. Our agency also has programs like this where we come and speak with panels. We do presentations at schools, at churches, at different events, community events. So if you're interested in something like that, if one of your listeners or watchers are interested in that, obviously reach out to us. reach out to the Frisco Police Department. We can do whatever we can to help as well.
Thank you.
So to touch on some of the things that I've heard here, I'll start with her since I remember just some of the fresh stuff off my mind. Some of the other things, the other words that we're seeing. Well, first of all, what we're seeing a lot of from the youth is any type of social media app that a child may have. Not even a child, a young adult. If you have access to that as a parent, I would definitely recommend you mirroring your students, their phone, their apps, having all the passwords. That's where we're seeing most of this being passed on from person to person is on social media. Instagram, Telegram, Snapchat, TikTok. I mean, if you can name it, it's there. Word of mouth is the biggest thing, obviously. In our community, I heard Flower Mound, I've heard Plano. Everybody thinks it's not there. It's not going to happen, not in our community. It's here, unfortunately. It's been happening. Last year, we had, I believe, 19 total overdose that we investigated. Now, that's just the ones that the police department went to. If a person drops someone off at the hospital, they don't necessarily call the police. And sometimes the hospital doesn't call the police because of patient health records and information you can't give out, so they're just not going to give that out. So the ones that we went to, of those 19, 13 of those involved fentanyl. Of those 13, there were 5 deaths that we investigated in our department. So that was last year. This year, every investigation that we've gone to, every overdose that we've gone to is involved in fentanyl. It's already up twice what it was last year for our department in the first 4 months. We had 5 deaths last year that came from fentanyl overdose out of the 7 deaths that we investigated in overdoses. This year, we've already had 3 in the first quarter. So unfortunately, it is here, and I don't want it to be here to stay. We need all the help we can get. So spread the word, let everyone know. Some of the other things that I know of that we've touched on today, some of the other words that you may hear being used on social media or talked about. Perks, I heard one of you say that earlier. We've used it in different phrases like, hey, I need a little perk, I need a little pick me up. That's not necessarily what that means, unfortunately. Blues is another one. Sometimes just straight up M30s, because that's the M30 is like what they're calling a Percocet, and that's what they're looking for. Some of the other things you've already mentioned, YURK, Y-U-R-K, that's another one that's out there. Those are just kind of some of the slang that's being used. Unfortunately, it's nationwide. We partner with a lot of the agencies around us. Collin County Chief Skinner, he has a drug task force. We've been working with them specifically to combat some of this in the area. When we get information from either investigations that we do or tips that come in, we don't just work the ones in our county or in our city. We'll pass it on to other counties. We'll see if it's something that we can do to help out. We'll investigate the most as much as possible to the fullest. Some of the stats from the DEA that we have that I know of is, I think earlier you talked about how 6 out of the 10 pills that are pressed or fake pills contain a lethal dose. Last year, I think it was 40%. Now it's already up to 60% of those pills contain that lethal dose. So again, that one pill, that's all it takes. So last year, DEA confiscated 57.7 million pills of fentanyl and 1,700 pounds of fentanyl powder. So that is enough, equivalent to 410 million lethal doses of fentanyl. There's only 331.9 million people in the United States. And that's just some of the statistics that are out there, unfortunately, that we're having to work to combat. The biggest thing I could say to help with that is start early and start often and talk often. Start early with your kids, not just wait till they're okay, they're in middle school, they're not into that yet, or they're only a freshman in high school, they probably haven't even seen that yet. Start early. Unfortunately, start, in elementary school. I have young kids. I may not look like it, I'm a little bit older, but I still have a 3rd grader. We've already had those discussions with him, and maybe not necessarily as strong as you would, with your older children, but, you can have those conversations with them. Just, hey, don't take any medicine that anybody ever gives you. If somebody tries to give you some medicine, just ask us. And anything as simple as that. And then just keep building on that as you go, as they grow. We have avenues that you can contact us. Obviously you can reach us anytime. We're open 24/7. We're a business that never closes. We're always open. So you can contact us. You can talk to a police officer on, right then and there if you need to. If it's something that someone wants to remain a little bit more anonymous, they can call up and ask to speak to one of our detectives. Our detectives will call them back. And you can remain nameless and give us whatever information you can. Any tip that we receive, we're gonna follow up on and see if there's anything to that, any legitimacy to it. Another way is we have tip 411 in our department. So if you just wanna text in tip 411, it comes to our narcotics detectives. Our narcotics detectives, again, they're gonna look into it as much as they can.
Outstanding. Thank you, Lieutenant Moore. It's so much that we've discussed, that we're discussing, so much to unpack. Yeah. But the heart of it is to have the conversation. It's only too late when it's too late. Have the conversation with your family. I was talking to my father about a few weeks ago. He didn't have any idea what was going on with fentanyl. He didn't even realize what it was. And after we had a conversation, he was like, I need to tell everybody. It's something that we need to know, and we need to not be ashamed or afraid to just have the conversation. So what we want to do now is, there are so many questions. You all probably have questions. And so we do have some questions that we do want to ask and ask you all to speak to at this time. And then we also want to make sure that we cover things. If we don't ask something, we want to know what is something. Matter of fact, let's just start off with that.
Yes. No, I agree.
Let's do that.
Because we can have questions, right, parents and those of you watching, but we don't know what we don't know. And so because we don't always know what we don't know what to ask to fill in the gaps in our information. So what is something that you can start us off with, just from your wheelhouse, your area of experience and expertise, that we have not asked yet, that you thought to say, but because of time, maybe you thought, I'll just leave that out and we'll see if someone else gets to it. What is that one thing you might want to share? Can we start with you, Kathy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting. This popped in my head, so I'm going to bring it up. When Brett was substance using and buying drugs, he would try to figure it out. He needed a ride to get to where he was buying. He was buying his drugs in Fair Park, and so he'd have to go down there. He'd pay. They needed cash. They needed somebody to help him get in. It was a process. And that has changed so much because now they literally order the drugs on an app. They are paid for by Venmo or something similar, and they are delivered by Uber or something similar. So that whole process has changed so much. He would be gone half the day. Now they're coming and parents don't even know that somebody just dropped drugs off. So that whole process is something that you can start paying a little bit more attention to within your family.
That's good.
Thank you. Awesome. Mike?
One thing I was thinking about was with my son Preston, when I mentioned that he was depressed and he kind of isolated, I always wanted to see him in a good mood. And that's something I think parents should look at, is if you have a child that's depressed and sad, and then all of a sudden they're in a good mood, don't just be happy that, oh, thank God they're in a good mood. Why are they in a good mood? And that's something that, Preston had, he experimented with pills and stuff. And that's one thing I didn't notice. I just like, oh, great, he's in a good mood. He's happy. That stood out. Something that I failed at, that I think a lot of parents should look at. And the other thing is with their phones, as you mentioned, the apps. And, a lot of parents don't want to be the helicopter parents, but I'm guessing most of the parents are paying that cell phone bill, and they probably have a right to look at that cell phone and check it out. And one other last thing, when we mentioned the Narcan, from what I understand, Narcan only stays in the system for a little bit. So if you have a Narcan and you're at a party and you give your friend Narcan and they come back too, don't think it's over, because the Narcan doesn't stay in your system that long, but the drug will. You need to call 911, get them to the hospital so they can get on a Narcan drip, I guess, at the hospital. So that's something. Don't just think that it's fixed just because you give them the spray. So
thanks, Mike. Great insight.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you for
yes.
that caution. That's very important to know. Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Shannon?
So one of the things I was thinking is people want to say fentanyl is just in a perk. We do free drug testing for fentanyl at Grace to Change, and what we found is people come in and say, I've only smoked weed. They have fentanyl in their system. We found it most recently with a woman who came in and she had done cocaine one time. There was no cocaine in her system, and there was fentanyl in her system. But having been to the hospital, hospitals aren't testing for fentanyl. So we encourage people, if you have an overdose, to come either to us or find a place that'll test for it. But it's in every drug: Adderall, Xanax, methamphetamine, MDMA. There's literally no drug that is safe from this fentanyl.
Oh my. Now that's concerning. But thank you for sharing that there is a place where if parents or anyone for that matter is concerned and may want to be tested, you need to find Grace for Change. Thank you for that. Lieutenant?
So I'll go back to what Mike said on the Narcan. From what I understand, it's 30 to 90 minutes is all that Narcan will last. So yes, it's not just one shot of Narcan that you might be able to buy over the counter or have at home to give that person. You need to get them to the hospital right away and not think it's over. I'm glad that she brought up the different types of pills, because it's also not just the pills, the powder also we're finding.
Yeah.
You know, it's and some of the signs and things to look for that you may not know if you know what to look for, but some of the things they're doing is they're actually smoking the pill. So they'll put it inside foil, burn the bottom of the foil, and then inhale the fumes off of that. So balled up foil that's maybe been burnt is something to look for. Another way is cut straws or ballpoint pens cut down in half, things like that, where they'll crush the pill up, or if they get access to powder, the powder itself, you know, they could mix the powder with heroin, anything like that. But those are things to look for, is cut straws with any type of, you know, crystal residue inside of it. Something else to look for is either the really small Ziploc bags that you can buy, the real tiny ones that fit in the palm of your hand, or even like a sandwich bag where they'll tear corners off of them, put a few pills in, and then tie knots on it. That's how they'll sell them, so it's a smaller bag. Those are some things to look for as a parent or a family member that might need to know, you know, what's there as signs. And they may have seen it, they may have seen these things, just didn't realize what it was. That's the things definitely to look for.
Oh, very good.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing those insights. Go ahead.
I wanted to add one more thing when
Please.
you speak of marijuana. I know I haven't heard of it much here in the area, but it is being laced in marijuana, and the THC vape pens. I hear from people all over the United States, and even when I'm out talking to people, they'll have, you know, young adults as kids, and they'll say, "Well, my son, he smokes pot, and that's okay, and he knows where he gets it from." Well, one thought is, everybody knows where they're getting their drugs from, so that's kind of not a comment. I mean, I just want to throw that out there, that I know I've heard of some overdoses in other parts of the country of the THC marijuana vape pens. So
That's a big deal. That's a big deal. So when I think about this, I know some of our teens and young adults have heard this conversation. Some of them, for those of them that may know the dangers, but they feel like, well, I know who I'm getting them from. Who is making this stuff? You know, who is making this stuff? Because, you know, it's not their friends. It's not the ones that they trust that they're getting it from. So can y'all speak to that?
Well, fentanyl, for one, the U.S. pharmaceutical companies and hospitals develop fentanyl for major pain, for cancer patients and back patients. And so in order to make fentanyl, you have a precursor chemical, and that precursor chemical can only come from two places. One's India and one's China. So we need that precursor in order to make fentanyl. So China was sending fentanyl in, it got stopped, and now they're shipping it to Mexico. Mexico's fabricating, making this stuff, and then sending it up to the United States. So, and when I tell kids all the time, I'm like, you know, when you're buying your Xanax from the little guy down the corner that you've been buying forever, and you trust him, and He's not getting it from them. He's not manufacturing this. It is coming up from Mexico. And I have slides of some of the DEA has a lot of photographs of the labs that we're seeing, especially in China. There's like 700 to 800 of them. And if you look at the labs, it's not like Purdue Pharmaceutical Companies. These are trashy warehouses that with buckets of chemicals, nothing's marked and it's disgusting. And when you look at those photographs and you know that this is where people are getting drugs that they think are legit, it's not. And we really need to make sure that our kids understand just because you're buying from the guy you've been buying from a long time, things have changed. The drugs are not coming from where they used to. It's just very different right now. And it's chemical, it's basically warfare with a drug is what we're dealing with. I mean, this is not, I got invited to DEA in Virginia, and they brought in a lot of nonprofits. There was about 50 of us, and DEA is known for not working with others well. And they literally are saying, we need your help. We need boots on the ground talking about this because it is out of control. So we have to continue this conversation and educate, because it's the only way we're going to get through it, is the education and sharing all this information.
It sounds like what you're also saying is that while there's been a season of all of these different organizations, right, or government, law enforcement, educators, treatment centers working in silos to try to go after this, we're in a season where this is going to require that we all come together as a community, share our information, share our resources, and share our voices and speak into these areas and kind of shine a light where it hasn't been. Because again, a part of why this was so important to our pastor, she said the church can't be the last to know. We have hundreds of people sitting in these pews and we serve their children, but they don't live here. They live in Monday through Saturday, right? And when they leave this building, they go out into the world and they have neighborhoods and they have friends and they have families and they're in school and they're in colleges and at work in different areas. And without this information, we really are sending them out there as sheep amidst the wolves. Correct? Because it can sneak up. We've heard several stories now about how they're changing the way it looks, right? The appearance, where it can look like a sort of candy or just a variety of things. So we told kids don't do drugs, but what if the drug doesn't look like drugs? What if the drug doesn't taste like a drug? What if it doesn't smell like a drug? Can y'all speak to any of what I just said just now?
Yeah, lean into that, please.
I can go ahead and start some of
Sure.
it. Some of the things we're seeing is, rainbow fentanyl is what they're calling it. It's just, like you said, it looks like candy. It's all different colors. It could look like a Starburst. Not Starburst, I'm trying to think of the Smarties, candies that back when I was younger, that's what we ate a lot of, was Smarties. They look a lot like that. Just all different colors, but they contain fentanyl. Recently, there was a local agency north of us. They confiscated some fentanyl that was pressed into look like ibuprofen pills. So, it said IBP on it. So it's just a lot of different ways to that it can be disguised, unfortunately.
Shannon, when you get people coming into the treatment center, can you talk to us a little bit about how they're even being introduced? And can I preface it by sharing this? There are several cases, far too many, one is too many, of those who have had an encounter with fentanyl and have lost their lives. But we still know that there are people that have survived an encounter with fentanyl and they are now addicted. And their timeline for the time when that stops them in their tracks and they don't have another opportunity, it's fleeting, it's on their heels. And so we still have survivors, people who are dealing with this. I do want you, Shannon, to speak about this because you're helping support and treat those who are trying to shake this, and they need support, they need education, and they need the grace provided at Grace for Change. Speak to this, please.
You bet. So a lot of the people, you're speaking of the one pill, those people do come. But what we're finding now is people have been using fentanyl and they like the high. So similar to heroin, they're addicted to fentanyl. We had a couple that came in and they had just been arrested for manufacturing and delivery and they had 26 fentanyl pills, which sounds like a lot. The guy very honestly said, this is our daily stash. This is what we do in a day. So we are trying to get people off the fentanyl just like we do with the heroin. And logic says a near-death experience or a trip to jail is going to stop you from doing this. Unfortunately, addiction doesn't work like that. The cornerstone of it is continued use despite negative consequences. So our job is to give people the support that they need to be productive citizens. If we put them in jail, they're not getting any help there. So that's our passion. We want to help people that are on probation, that have child protective services in their life, be reunited with their families and not end up with broken homes and people in jail, because that doesn't help our community in any way, shape, or fashion.
Absolutely. And Keetran, you and I, we talk often about guardrails for our children. And Mike, you mentioned something. Mike flat out said, listen, if you're paying for that phone, that child lives under your roof, you have every right to search it, to ask for a phone check, and to just engage them in that way and let them know. Like, I realize that the World Wide Web now has access to being under my roof. This is not the days of dial-up and you only got access to it in your school's computer lab. They have it right here at their fingertips. Can you delve just a little bit more passionately into this? Because we really want our parents to just take that and run with it and get the courage, you know, whether they're 13 or 16, because sometimes parents think, oh, they're too old. I don't want them to think I don't trust them. Well, you and I have said the Word of God does not tell us to trust our kids. It tells us to train them.
Train them.
Yeah. Right, so you're breaking not a single commandment in doing so. So can you lean into that? And let's talk to our parents and guardians and family members who care about little people in their lives.
Yeah, I think the first thing that if I was to go to my child, if Preston, I said, let me see your phone, and he was to get mad at me and take it or whatever, I would rather him get mad at me and explain to him that if you don't get mad at me right now, this could be the last time you're ever going to be mad at me or happy with me. And I would actually say, I'll give you your phone back if you watch this video and share somebody, like my son that has passed away, just share that with them. And to talk to them and just say, look, I'm just trying to save your life. And, I think they even said it in the video earlier. It used to be that, you don't want your kids to do drugs because, you know what, if you start drugs, you can have an addiction problem. Now, you might not ever have an addiction problem. You're just going to die. Right. And, and I would love to see Shannon go out of business, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, nothing against her. I went through Grace to Change. It's a great place, but I would rather not have this problem anymore. But it's, we have to be strong parents and talk to them. And I think nowadays parents have become more or less friends with their children, especially when they get to be teenagers. And even now, young adults that are still on the payroll with parents, in their 20s. And, you talk to them and you've got to just bang it into their head because it'll happen to everybody. It's not, like I say, the drug addicts on the street. And that's the other thing is when people say, well, because I had a lot of haters that would comment and say, well, your son knew what he was doing. He was a drug addict. He deserved to die. And the one thing I say is, well, first off, nobody wakes up one morning and says, I was thinking about going to law school, but I'm going to try this drug addict thing for a little bit. That doesn't happen, so it's just bang it into their heads. To be honest, I wish I had that backward because I was afraid of Preston sometimes. I don't want to upset him or make him mad. And I wish I would have now. So just drill it into their heads. So
something I'd follow up there is, from a parent aspect of it is be a parent first, be a parent always. You can be a friend when they need a friend. They need someone to talk to, you can be there for them. That doesn't mean you need to stop being a parent and just be a friend. You don't need to be afraid of them not liking you. Every parent is going to go through that point with their kid at some point. They're not going to like you for something you did to them. Be a parent first and be there for them in that aspect.
That's great. That's great. I know I've had moments where I think back that I was glad my parents did certain things and said certain things. I didn't like it in the moment. So if we can tap back into those things, is what I hear you all saying, tap back into those moments where we remember our parents doing and saying things that we didn't want at the time, but we're glad they did. So thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your candidness, your vulnerability. This is important. It means so much to us, to our community, to our church, to our youth and our families. So thank you so much.
Potter's House family, 4.8 minutes. Every 4.8 minutes, there's an overdose. I want to thank our leadership, Pastor and Bishop. I want to thank Ann Harris again. I want to thank all of our panelists, Lieutenant Ryan Moore, Shannon White, Mike Land, Kathy O'Keefe. I want to thank our moderators, our very own Kedron and Keturah. Join us in solidarity in this fight, in bringing awareness. Join us as we pray as well, and we believe God, and we put into action in terms of fighting fentanyl. Let us pray. God, thank you for the opportunity to make change spiritually and practically. God, bless all of our panelists. Bless, God, all of those that are in this fight, that are seeing our students go through so much. And so, God, we ask for your strength. We ask for your courage. We ask for your power. And God, help us to do what we know to do once we are aware. Get the glory out of this. And I thank you in advance that we will win this fight against fentanyl. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you. Please like and share this. Please get involved. And we thank you so much, Potter's House North. God bless you.